So we are going to use our Spring Batch in order to communicate with this microservice. We are processing all those files here, and now we are going to upload it to our server-side microservice. So let's do that. So in order to do that, the first thing that we need to do is to grab some dependencies, right? So let's go to start.spring.io. We need actually the web dependency. So let's just take the web dependency here. My mistake, it should be Maven. Let's get this dependency here, which will allow us to create our web client in order to invoke our microservice. So in that order, let me just collapse these. Okay, in that order, let me just put the dependency here. And now we have, okay, once we have the dependency, we can start creating here our client. So let's just put here storage like this. And here, let's just create our bean. Let's just call it by digital storage client. Now that we have here our digital storage client, this is the place that we are going to use. For example, let's say we are going to use the Spring REST client, which is new from Spring Framework 6 and Spring Boot 3. So in that order, let's just do it very simple. Just put it like this, REST client. It should be this one here, REST client. REST client dot create. Let's just put it like this. So now that we have here our REST client, of course, we need to create our client. But before that, let me just put here, for example, a package. Okay, let's just call it by DTO. So in this package, DTO, we are going to have the object that our microservice receives. So let me just go to this one. The object is this, and let me just paste it here. File to upload. Just like this. So now, the first thing that we need to do is to implement the method. Okay, it will return a string which will correspond the document code, so the file code. Here we can just say upload. So here in the upload, I think we can just receive, let me see. Yeah, let's just put here file. Okay, we are going to receive the file from our processor. Let me see here, the processor. Okay, it contains the file. Let's just go here. Here we can start, for example, creating our call that, or let me just use here the REST client that post URI. So we need the URI. Let me just copy here, just paste here. And now we specify the body. I think the content type is not necessary, but let's just put here. The media type should be application JSON. We need also the body. So we're gonna retrieve, and the body of the retrieve will be a string, okay? So after that, I think it's all, okay, that we need. Now we need to create the body that our server side is expecting. So in that order, let me just instantiate here, for example, file to upload, okay, will be equal new file to upload. So as we can see here, okay, this is the one that we are going to use in order to upload our file. So the file upload, it receives the file name. So let's just get here file.get name. It receives also the byte, okay, as content. So in that order, let's just use files.read, okay, all bytes. And here we say file.toPath. So it's complaining because it's a checked exception. In that order, let me just use here the sneaky throws from Lombok, which will suppress this exception. So here is the place that we can specify our file to update, which will be the body. So this is very simple. Of course, there is a better way to create or instantiate our REST client, but for this video, okay, let's just put it like this. And yeah, I think it's okay. So now the next thing that we need to do is to create our writer. So let's go here in our job config. We can use it like this. So for example, we can just come here and say, okay, now we are going to inject another bean, which will be digital storage client. So it's okay. So we can just come here and, for example, instead of just logging this message here, we can do something like, we can go here, we can still log the message, but we can, for example, here now get, for example, the items, and for each item we now can call our let's say our digital storage, yes, our digital storage client, and call the upload method, okay, which receives a file. So for example, here we can just get the file. So this is okay. And if we just put, for example, I forgot to make it in presentation mode, which is, in my point of view, better. Yeah, so having it like this is nice, but if we want to test it, it will be hard to test, okay? But for now, we can, for example, start the application, okay? Let's just put here this is the server side, but actually we need our application, okay, which is this one. And let's run our application. And let's take a look. Okay, so it's complaining, we got error. So it's complaining here that could not resolve, okay, could not resolve these resources here. So now it's not understanding the resources here, okay? And we can just, for example, take a look here. We can see the calls, okay? Spring.io. It's okay to, okay, it's okay to understand the exception. So we can see that once we add here the web, okay, the Spring Boot starter web dependency, we are getting this exception because I think there is a conflict between the one that we have, okay, and the, I think, Tomcat, yeah, in servlet this case, okay. So in that order, we can, for example, exclude, okay, we can exclude Tomcat, but it's not necessary, okay. I got another thing that I just understood here. We can, for example, just tell here that we don't need any application server because Tomcat here is like making it not working, okay. So in that order, we can just use spring.main.web, and we here specify, yeah, web application type, yeah, application type, and here we specify none. So for now, let's run our application. Let's see if it solved the issue. Okay, no, it's still complaining. Okay, I think it's like this, maybe. Web application type, yeah. Okay, yeah, now it's working, yeah. It was my mistake, it's web application type. So now let's see if it will invoke our, let's say, microservice and store the files that we have. So yeah, as we can see, it's working. And now if we go, for example, here in our server side, we can see the logs, okay? We can see the logs here. Yeah, we got here some files. But in order to make it sure that it was, let's say, our Spring Batch application that is uploading files, we need to clear here the logs. Let's just clear here the logs. In our Spring Boot application, let's just log. Let's go here and let's go to our writer. And let's say here, instead of leaving it like this, Okay, let's just do it like this. So in here, let's just log that info in order to be more, let's say, visual. So for each file that we upload, we are just logging the code. We can just say, yeah, file code. Yeah, file code, gonna be better. Let's restart our application. And now let's wait a little bit. All right, that's amazing. Let me just stop the application because it will keep uploading. Now, as we can see, we have here the codes of the file, right? The codes that we have just uploaded. So for example, let's just take a look here. Let's get this code and let's go to our browser. And here we can check if we got the file. Wow, amazing guys, amazing. So let's go once again to our microservice. For example, here we know that it's PDF. We can find, for example, here, it should be, as you can see here, all these files here. I think these files correspond these images here, this one here that we have here. So if we get the code here, for example, this one, and let's go to our browser, we can just paste here the code and yeah, we got it, okay? Let's go back here, for example, in our server side, and we will see it was receiving some requests. And also, as you can see, I'm using in this microservice here, webflux, which is reactive, non-blocking, and it's executing also in different threads. So everything here is multi-threading and we can keep playing with them. Let's go back to our microservice here. You can keep playing, okay? And give me some suggestion. If you didn't understand anything, just leave in the comment section. Yeah, we are uploading, but as I was telling you guys that I don't like, okay, this kind of solution, putting everything in the right, okay? Some people can say, okay, you can just do refactoring here and extract to a method, okay? For example, here we can call digital storage, or here we can just say, for example, upload files, okay? It's okay to do something like this, but I think we can do better, okay? We can do better. So in that order, for example, we can go here the same way that we create here our item processor. Why not creating here our item writer? So that will allow us to test in isolation, right? So because putting everything in the same class, it's not nice. In that case, so let's just go here and let's create our package for writers. So the same way that we have, for example, let's take a look. So we have the reader, we have the processor, right? We need also the writer, right? So in that order, let's just create a new class, okay, a new component, which we are going to call it by, let's say, digital storage item writer. So, as always, we need to implement the item writer, right? Because it's an item writer. And we should think what we are receiving. We are receiving here upload file DTO, right? So in that order here, we are going to receive upload file DTO. How do I know that? Because when you see your step, okay, configuration, you know that you read a resource and you write a upload file DTO, okay? So you read something and you write another thing. So once you have the reader, the processor maybe is the one that can change your writer. So as we can see here, in our case, our item processor receives resource and return upload file DTO, an upload file DTO class. So that's why I'm having it like this. So let's just implement the method. As we can see, we only have one method here. So in that order, we need to, for example, here is the place that we are going to inject our proxy, our web client, okay? So it will be digital storage client like this. It's complaining because we need to add here the requires our constructor, which is our Lombok annotation that allows us to dependency injection through the constructor. So now having it like this, yeah, I think the only thing that we can do, we can just go back in our job here, okay? We can just grab everything that we had. Let's just copy this, okay? And let's go here in our writer and let's put it here, okay? So it's complaining also because it needs a logger. So in our case, we are going to use also the Sulfur-J of Lombok. And here, as we can see, we have the chunk, okay? We can just do like this. Now that we have our item writer, I think we can also annotate it as a component. Yes, a component like this. This is a simple way that allows us to create a custom item writer. So here, in our case, we don't need this anymore. And the only thing that we are going to inject here is our item writer. So now that we have here, we can just remove this and use the digital storage item writer. Now let's run our application and let's see if it's still working. Application, and now it's writing, right? It's writing. As you can see, it's writing here. And if we go back to our server side, we will see that it receives requests. So this is a very nice way to create our custom item writer. But for example, we need to do refactoring because later people will say, oh, that's a dirty code and so on. So just guys, remember, I don't want to make this video very long, okay? So that's why something we are leaving, okay, behind, okay? We just left behind some, for example, naming convention and something like that. Our focus is to become a legend using Spring Batch. So here, for example, we can just say, let's just call here, upload, like this, and oops, MacBook, I hate you. And now, yeah, we can just do it like this. Ooh, clean code. Now everybody's happy. Ooh, ooh. Okay, guys. Yeah. So the other thing that I want to show you guys is sometimes when you use, for example, item writer in order to, let's say, to invoke an external service or a service or something that can be the item writer itself, you can use something called by adapter. So what is an adapter? We can use an adapter for item reader. We have the item, let me just show you guys here, item reader adapter, and we have item writer adapter. So for example, we can create here our item writer adapter. So just like this, which will in our case receive what our, let me see here, upload file DTO, right? Upload file DTO. So let's just call it by, for example, item writer adapter. Okay, just like this. And here, for example, we can instantiate adapter. So here in the item writer, we have some methods. For example, we can use the one that is set target object, okay, which actually this method means that the one that we are going to delegate to write, okay. So in that order, for example, here it should be not this one here, but let me, for example, comment this, okay, guys. Let's just comment here and let's inject here, for example, the digital storage web client, because the digital storage web client is the one that we are going to use to write our items. So after you set it like this, the other thing that you have to do in order to make our digital storage to write or to upload our files, we need to specify, for example, the method. And the method here, in our case, should be the name, okay, this method here that we have in digital storage client. So in that order, let's just put it like this. And here, for example, yeah, we can just return the writer adapter. So I think it's okay. We can annotate it as bin, for example, and here we are going to use the item writer adapter. So this is an let's say alternative that you can keep playing with this. This is also a nice way to create your item writer when you have, for example, a service that works itself as a writer, okay, and then you specify the method. So now let's run our application. Oops, now we got an exception. Okay, no matching arguments. So for example here, what we can do, I don't want to change it, okay, I'm just going to revert it, but I need to prove you guys what I was trying to do here. Here the thing is, as you can see in the exception, no matching arguments found for method upload. It's very simple because here we have file and our item writer is receiving, right? Is receiving a upload file DTO, okay? So for example here, I can just do something like this. So here we're just gonna say like this. Now we are going to receive the upload file DTO, okay? And here, upload file DTO, that, for example, file name, okay? And then upload file DTO, that file, that to file. So just like this. I think we should, yeah. So this is what I have done here, okay? Just replace, because the exception is telling us that no matching arguments found. So very nice exception, descriptive, and we can understand it very well. So now it's complaining here. Now we can just, for example, upload it like this, okay? So if we restart our application, our Spring Batch application, and we can see it's processing, okay? It's working. The item writer is working. This is very nice. So it's nice to have this kind of, let's say, behavior or this kind of implementation of item writer. But for me, I still preferring the one that we had, which is this one here that I have commented. And yeah, we can just, for example, put it back. So I think it's item writer, and we need to go back here in our item writer, and yeah, we can just leave it like this. So I think it will work. Now we can see both of them running. So just like this. This is what we have here. We have our Spring Batch application here, this side, and we have our digital storage microservice, which we are using in order to upload some files. And once we upload the file, the microservice return the code, okay, of the file that we have just uploaded. And then we can just, for example, take the code here and go back to that microservice, and we can just get the file, okay, by pasting here the code. So now what we are going to do, now we are going to send email, okay? So after uploading all those files, we need to notify, let's suppose that we need to notify our, let's say, user or our business team or someone that take care of these invoices, these files. So in that order, we are going to use two approaches. I'm going to explain you two approaches. So let's go to the first one. But as you know, in order to use or in order to send an email, we need, once again, some dependencies. So in that order, let me just go to our browser here. So let me just go here in our browser. In this place, I'm just going to add here, for example, the Java mail sender, okay? And let's explore in order to grab the dependency. So let's just get this dependency here, and let's go to our project, paste the dependency. So this is the dependency that we need in order to use the email capabilities. All right, now we got the dependency. So the first thing that we are going to do, let's just create here a new package. Let's call it by service. And here is the place that we are going to create our email service, right? Yeah, let's just create here our email service. Okay, let's just use the same approach. Okay, so email service. All right, so in our case here we are going to have, for example, here a method send. Okay, now that we have here our method, we need to think what we are going to send. Let's think a little bit. Yeah, actually we are going to send all the file codes that we have just uploaded. So once we upload any file, we are going to save it in our job context in order to share these codes from one step to another step. So this is a concept called by passing data between steps in Spring Batch. So the first thing that we are going to do, we are going to use the ability that Spring Batch offers to us in order to pass the data between steps. So before moving further, let me just do here something. So before step, okay, we are going to find a way that will allow us to initialize our container. So what I mean by container will be our object that we are going to use in order to save every single code that we have here. So once we upload the file, right, by using our web service, so our web service is returning to us the code, right, the code of every single document. This code will allow us to, for example, download or inspect the file that we uploaded. So in that order, let me just go back here, not here. Yeah, the first thing that we need to do, we are going to use the before step. So before Spring Batch 3 or 4, we need to implement, for example, here another interface like this: item, writer, listener. But nowadays we don't need it anymore. We can still implementing, but it's not required anymore. So in that order, we are going just to create here a new method. Let's just call it by initialize. We need also to, for example, here to use the Spring Batch step execution. So once we have here the step execution, we use the step execution that we just have there. Let's use step execution. We are going to say, okay, the step execution will be, let's say, the one that Spring will provide us. So step execution like this. So the step execution. So let's just use, for example, step execution. Now we are going to get the execution context, and let's put here our key. So it receives a string as a key, as value, and an object. So in that order, I think we can say, for example, here our key will be files uploaded codes. So here we are going to initialize it as array list of string. So this is the place that we are using the step execution. So what is the step execution? Step execution represent everything that is happening in our job execution in the step section. So in the step execution, we can see, we can get how many lines we read, write, the commit, how many we skipped. So you just remember that. If you need to get, for example, as we did here in our listener, we use the step execution. So we get this job execution and we went to step execution and then we got, okay, the right count. So step execution is very nice in order to get what's happening in your step. So now that we got everything that's happening in our step, we are adding here a new execution context, okay? A new key will contain all these codes that our web service is returning to us. So having it like this, we can do something like this. Let me just refactoring it. Okay, let's use the lambda expression because we need to grab the return value. So this return value, we can just remove this comment as it's returning a string. Okay, for example, I can do it in line, but let me just show you guys. For example, we are going to return this and then we specify here the return type, but we need to do it in line, just clean code. Now that we are returning, so this method here is returning our string. So we are going to get the string which represents the code. okay, of the document that we have just uploaded. And now let's save it into our step execution context. So we can just get the step execution context. Let's just get here our list that we initialize here. So what is the key is files uploaded code. So we just do it like this. Here we are not expecting an object. We can just cast it to a list of string. Yeah, so now that we have it, we can think, okay, now, yeah, files uploaded code. Let's just use here something like that, file uploaded code, upload code, okay? So we can just, for example, here use it. So we initialize our array list here in the step, okay? And here we are getting, for every single chunk, we are first uploading the file. Once we receive the code of the file, we are adding it here. Yeah, I think it's okay. Let me just put it like this. And it's saying that it can produce a null pointer exception, but here we are initializing it, so I don't worry about that. Let's just refactoring it very fast. Process. Let's just put it like this. So it's requiring us to put in, let's say, method reference. So just like this. So this is the only thing that we need to do. We are using step execution. We are initializing here a new, let's say, array list inside our container with the key files upload code, and we are using it once we upload. Here we are calling the web service. So after uploading, we have the code, so we add it in our, let's say, our step execution context. So now that we have it, now we need to go back to our job. Here in our job, for now, this is the place that we need to understand when we are passing data between steps or between jobs, okay? So as we have here our step, we need to create a min that will allow us to get this data, okay, that we just add here, because we are adding in the step level. So for example, if we have two steps, so step 1 and step 2, they need to communicate, they need to share the data. So in that order, Spring Batch offers us utility class called by execution context promotion listener. So let's just call it by promotion listener. If you take a look in the documentation, okay, you will see that this class can be used to automatically promote items from the step execution context to job execution context at the end of a step. So what does it mean? It means that we are in this step, right? So after we finish this step in this writer here, we are adding these codes here. So in the end of this step, we can get the data that we have just added, okay? But we need to specify it by using here this execution context promotion listener. So in that order, let me just instantiate it here in context promotion listener. So I'm going to use the promotion listener. I'm going to set the keys that actually I'm expecting to have. So it receives an array of string, okay, just like this. And yeah, here we can just add, for example, some keys. So for example, we have here our key. So for now, let me just add it here. It's all that we need. So let me just return here the promotion listener. I'm just going to add it as a bin. So we are going to use this promotion listener at the step level. Okay, so for example here, after writer, I'm just going to use here the listener, and I'm going to use here the promotion listener. So now, once we do this, it means that, okay, we are sharing these keys, which in our case, we just have one, for all steps that we have in this job. Now, let's create our email send, because we are going to get these codes, okay, in order to send email.